Chin,
Here.
Hagan,
Here.
Loy,
Here.
Moss. Okay.
And do we have any changes, requests, or deletions to the agenda? Yes, I do have a question regarding the agenda number 4, election of LAC vice chair. Right, vice chair, yes. Don't we have an election in June? Oh, okay. So if we have an
You guys can
election.
remember to use your microphones.
Oh,
All we
sorry.
got was the roll call. I'm sorry, can we start over?
Sure.
Maybe just a quick second.
No problem. Perhaps we could start by even waving. So why don't we go ahead and do the roll call again, because then they can. Chin,
Here.
Hagan,
Here.
Loy,
Here.
Moss.
Here? Oh. Here. Now you can hear me.
Okay, great. And we don't have any members of the public here for oral communications. And I believe there are probably no changes to the agenda. Correct?
I do have a question.
you have a question about the
yes,
agenda.
on the fourth agenda, election of 2017 LAC Vice Chair. I remember that we will have an election in June. So if we have an election for Vice Chair right now, does that mean that we will have another election in June?
So yes, it does. We don't have a vice chair right now.
Yes, but last time we didn't have Vice Chair either.
We were not allowed to vote last time because the election had to be advertised as an agenda item. So last time, we knew that Doug was not on the committee anymore, but we couldn't just elect, Don. Don? Yeah, Don. And, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
So anyway, would you like to do it for me?
Sure. So at the last meeting, it was not agendized, so you could not elect a new chair. I understand what you're saying, though. The question is, in June, then do we elect another chair and another vice chair? So the answer is yes. You could also, assuming that there are enough commissioners, right? And it is an action item. If, when we got to it, you said we'd rather not have the election at this time, but just wait until the June meeting, then you're welcome to do that as well. That could be a motion.
Well,
I just want to make sure that for these agendas, because we have an action item for the approval of the draft minutes.
Correct.
So is it necessary to vote with everybody's here? I mean, for the chair and vice chair, is it necessary to have both of them here, or one of them is absent is also allowed for us to vote?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I would,
In fact, even if the chair and the vice chair were not here, and the other 3 people, when it's a full, that would still constitute a quorum, and you are still able to vote.
okay. So in that case, we won't affect the voting for the action. So I would move not to elect for the vice chair this time, because we will have an election in June anyway. So I moved not to have this agenda.
So you can leave it on the agenda, and make that motion when we get to that agenda item.
Okay.
So keep
I
the
don't-
agenda as is,
Okay.
and then make that motion when you get there.
So I do have 2 choices. One is to move to delete this agenda. Another option is that I leave as it is right now, and when they move to the agenda number 4, then I move not to have the election?
Correct.
Okay, I'll take the later one. Yes, I'll wait for the agenda number 4.
Okay, because then you would be able to have discussion about why not to do that, what
Okay.
your reasoning is behind that.
Okay.
because we're not in the meeting yet. Okay. So, I believe we just Do I have to do a
No, you
roll
just
call
say-
or vote, or we've just accepted the agenda as is?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, we have draft minutes from the February 23rd meeting. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes, or is there discussion?
I had a kind of general comment, and it just occurred to me recently, but in the minutes, we'll have comments like, you look at the bottom of page 2, about the marketing program. Commissioners gave suggestions for strategy, community improvement programs, asked questions about limitations, and so on. And then there were answers. And we have this several times where there's an agenda item, and the only discussion is, well, the commissioners asked questions, there was discussion, there was answers. And I went back and looked at some minutes from last year, and I couldn't really place exactly what the questions were and what the answers were on some of these topics. So just as a general comment, I think it'd be useful if there was a little bit of discussion in the minutes about what the topics were, especially one that several people talked about, and what the responses were, just so we have it on the record and it's easier to track. Gee, did we actually pick up on that, or did we miss that completely when it was presented to us before? It just makes it a little clearer to me, because when I went back and looked before, I said, okay, we asked questions about this, but what did we ask exactly?
Can I ask a clarification? So here it says, they gave suggestions for marketing strategy, community involvement, and programs, and they asked questions about the limitations to the website, if any, and requested additional information on analytics on demand and using Nextdoor. So the questions, I believe, were about the limitations to the website.
Okay, if that's all it was, fine, but I thought there also were some questions about the programs and community involvement, and it's not clear whether we did or didn't ask questions about that. I'm just saying it'd be a little clearer if we had a little more information
Yeah.
about what was asked, instead of making it so general.
Okay,
That's all.
I think it's actually a good point.
thank you for the
It-
feedback, yeah.
Although, what we don't necessarily need is a list of every question.
No, I'm
and
not
answer
suggesting
to
that.
every
No.
question.
No, I'm
So I don't know how,
I'm just
Well,
saying
I'm
if
not
there
going
was.
to see the results, so.
Yeah, I'm saying if there were some issues that were discussed in more detail, and several of the commissioners chimed in, and there was a lot of back and forth, it's worth mentioning, that's all.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other corrections to the minutes? Is somebody going to move that we
I
accept
can
them?
move to accept them.
A second.
Shall we vote? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, Diane, thank you for being here this evening, and I believe you're going to tell us about the library collection, so welcome and thank you in advance.
Thank you for having me.
Oops. I'll move that around. Be sure to speak.
To speak here? Okay.
It'll reach you, but.
Okay. So, thank you everyone for the opportunity to share with you updated information about the age of our library's collection. So back in June of 2014, after we opened the Mitchell Park Library, I presented to LAC about the age of the collection. At that time, we opened a new library and was planning for opening another one during Canada. The Library Foundation provided $1 million for purchasing new materials for both new buildings. So lots of analytical work went into figuring out how to put the foundation fund to best use. One of the analysis we did was to find out the age of our library collection. So here was our findings. That's where we started. So I'm focusing on my presentation on adult nonfiction, since it can best help paint a picture how well a library's collection may meet community needs. As you can see, our adult nonfiction in general have an average age of 10 or more years old in the areas of science, technology, and even computer science, and then technology, and even geography, where all the travel books are. And you can tell from those areas in particular, we should have more recent publications on those subject matters. So what is the right age, you may wonder? Baker and Taylor, one of the two major suppliers of library materials in the country, indicated that they normally recommend no more than 10 years for for fiction, and no more than 3 to 4 years for nonfiction, in order to make the collection for that library to be a viable one. So then, in light of the findings, we needed action. So then we referenced the guidelines provided by American Library Association. Their criteria for building welcomed collection for user communities are these bullets: timeliness, relevancy, user percentage, user profiles, and comparisons. And timeliness means how does our collection offer up-to-date information? And relevancy is trying to address the need of our community. Does the collection offer up to when people come to the library, they find what they need on a subject matter or certain interest? So use percentage means what areas of a collection get used more than others. So then staff should have a focus. User profiles and comparisons try to answer questions: why are parts of the collection get used more than the others? And should we continue buying the areas that don't get used, and why? So based on these criteria, we formulated a plan to update our collection. So to achieve the outcome of that plan, updating the collection, I presented at the time to LAC. We said over the next 3 years, we would take action to address the needs, updating the collection. So of course, the first part is the financial support. Over the past 3 years, we received funding from friends of the Palo Alto Library. You can see $88,000 in 2014, $64,000 in 2015, $72,000 in 2016. So that's a total of $224,000. The grant funds from friends of the library to support us. And then also during those 3 years, Library Foundation was still using the $1 million they raised to purchase new and new collections, and we built our lease collection, and then we created a new Lucky Day collection. So these new books have impact on the borrowing rate, and thus affects how we look at the age of our general collection. And then another part of the action plan is to change how staff do their job, do our job, how we build our collection. So Monique directed us to implement a new model for building and managing collections. Up till 2014, almost all of our librarians played a certain role in building collections. They were either involved in selecting and purchasing, weeding, or different age levels. Many librarians have their hands in collection development. There were advantages for doing that. There was a strong staff involvement. But on the other hand, there's some pieces that needed more focus. So with the new model, you can see, we changed with mainly we only have 3 librarians involved in directly selecting and purchase materials. The main focus of building collections is on the others. You can see it's on, the percentages represent the time we spent. So 50% of the time we are encouraged, based on the model, were required to spend on managing the collection, and 20% on evaluation, and then 20% time spent on promotion. All the librarians are still involved in collection development, but their role became different. Their focus became different. So managing, meaning they're on the floor, working with the collection. Whenever time permits, they're out there looking at the collections on the shelves and constantly maintaining for better condition, for better display, for at the time if customers are around and they can observe customer behavior, how they pull the collections off shelves. Thus, we build some senses, how customers are using the collections, observational, and then also promote the collections. When they see customers are by the shelves around, then they can say, can start a conversation to promote the collection. Have you heard about this latest mystery? Have you heard about this latest interesting comic books, etc.? And then also they spend 20% of their time on evaluation. That means they look at data, they look at the circulation data, and then how well our collections or a particular area has been circulating, and then also comparing to other libraries, how well we do in terms of a collection. And
May I ask you a question?
sure.
So on the managing, so is that basically when they're interacting with the book? So shelving, making sure things are straight, reading the shelves, maybe saying, geez, does this look like these are the right books on the shelf right now? Then maybe we need to ask for more from one of the other libraries because for some reason, in our library, we only have the biographies of somebody now, of Washington today. And we don't have
Right.
Hamilton, that kind of thing?
Direct feedback.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, all right, thank you. I
Right,
just
right.
was,
Yeah, they also look at maybe it's worn, and we use automated returns, and then they get returned automatically, and then our pages, sometimes they just shelve directly, but then the books, librarians are professionally trained to have an eye toward relevancy, or if they're worn or conditions.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's sort of evaluating, but it isn't really evaluating, but it's the condition, managing the,
Right, more so.
Yeah.
Yeah, evaluation is more to use data, really look at the data.
thank you.
Yeah. So with all those four together, as you can see, well, it's our director's guide that we spend actually more time on the floor and work with the collections and work with the customers. And spend, you can see, the least amount of time, only 10% of our time, actually hands-on and buy this book and buy that DVD. So that's our model. Then with the grant funds from the Friends of the Library, we purchased we purchased a lot of items. Here, the data is showing just in the past year alone, we added English print for adults. We added 7,951 titles, and then that translates to 12,836 items. And then that's adult fiction, and then nonfiction is 4,858, and then we have fiction and juvenile books.
Can I ask?
So, yeah.
What is English print, the first line?
So that's all the rest actually. So that's the teen and and yeah. So all the rest. So but that's just the tag.
Teen is teen nonfiction is interfiled, just so that people know. Interfiled with adult nonfiction. And it also includes the teen fiction, things like that. So we didn't separate those out. Juvenile books are for grades 5 and under, 5 and under, middle school and under.
Right.
So just to clarify that.
Right. So above, that's the total, and that includes the teen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I
can
have a
we?
question.
Yeah.
I have a question. You're showing a total of almost 18,000 titles, but if I look at that, the adult English print duplicates the combination of nonfiction and fiction.
Right. So the
It's really
bottom,
more like
the bottom.
10,000.
Right. So the bottom, that line should not be there.
Yeah,
It's the top line.
yeah, the
right.
top one is the one that's,
It's the
Pertinent.
total. Right,
Yeah.
right. The top line is the total. The bottom should not be there.
okay.
Oh, so you mean, so can we say instead adult English print is the combined set of the nonfiction
Fiction,
and the fiction?
Correct.
Yeah.
And including
Okay.
teen.
And so the numbers at the bottom should not be totaled, okay?
Right.
If you add, if you add those two, the second and
Yes.
third lines together, it comes
It's
to
the
the first
top.
line.
Yeah.
Right,
Yes.
right,
And then if you add the third line in, your total is closer to, round numbers, 10,000.
Correct.
right,
Right.
Good math, Bob.
right. So the bottom line should not be there. So that's the volume that was added to the collection. So then you can see the change.
Just real quick.
Yeah.
So that's what the football money, the 224,000.
Right.
Okay, so about
That's how it was spent.
$10, $12 a book or something, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
$11 a book.
this was just for 2016 to 17. So we started using FOPO fund starting 2014, middle of 14, then 15, 15 to 16, 16 till now. So 3 years,
So that's the
That's the-
72,000.
basically,
16
more or
to
less. Right, more or less. So then a new analysis was done, and this is where we are now. You can see there's a change. So computer science, for example, you can see it's, oops. There's moved up 6 years. And like technology moved up 5, and geography it's 10. Those even though 900s, perhaps all of you already know, even though it says geography, that's where a lot of like travel books are. And yeah, so it's significant for this community to keep it up to date.
And just a couple questions. So this we also include books that we removed. Did we remove books as well?
Yes.
We replaced books or removed books.
Right,
And so the average went up by that plus the new books.
right,
Got it.
right.
And then, does this reflect the $1 million as well, or is this just the $224,000 over the 3 years from the football money?
This does include everything.
So this is the $1.25 million, basically,
Right, right.
for everything, okay?
Right, for everything. And also plus the existing collections.
Yes.
So you can see like 800s where it says literature. Those books, we purchased the new ones, but then a lot of them are still the old ones. We have
Right, they're
had.
old, they're classics, it's poetry, it's Shakespeare, it's, you know,
Timeless.
yes.
Right,
And if
right.
they're going by the date of publication, some of them are much older, and it doesn't need to be replaced.
Yeah, and I guess I'll just ask my question I had earlier. I was going to wait till the end. So the age, what is that the year of the edition, or when you bought it, or
The year of the publication.
year of that it was published? Yeah, the
Right.
publication date.
Right,
Okay,
right.
okay, because,
So even if
Yeah.
it's a book on Mars, for example, that was originally, maybe it's a classic, it was originally published in 1982, there has been new things. If
Yeah.
they reissue it, it's based on the date it was reissued, because there's likely updates, things like that included. There are other things like the arts, for example, where, you know, it's a coffee table book that was published in 1965 of some key artist's work. You're not going to change it, you're not going to move it or replace it, because there isn't anything else. And so if you think about it, probably the other thing would be to look at, you know, the total size of the collection. The 200s are relatively small, the 900s are quite large. We have a regular, I thought, you know, a regular purchase of new travel books on an annual basis. We buy those. But that doesn't affect the overall age of the collection as much, because there's so many more books in the 900s compared to the 200s or 300s.
right, and there's going to be
Right.
quite a few books that you're very happy to have at whatever date. And then there are
Correct.
some books where it's much, much more important that they be very recent. And
Correct,
and
absolutely.
it doesn't really matter how old the David Copperfield is, as long as it's in good condition, as Diane brought up earlier.
Or there may be,
Yeah.
there may have been a new foreword written by some new
Yeah.
scholar, and that is actually the key reason for purchasing that book.
Right, right. Thank you.
And did the collection grow in terms of overall size? Or did it stay about the same, or do we know the numbers?
Well, overall, we have over 350,000 items. We'll do another presentation about the collection overall, but generally, you cannot grow, just grow
Right.
because of the availability of the space, right? So, but it's around 350,000 items. It's anywhere, it fluctuates, it's anywhere 300 or 280, 300, 350 at different times.
So for the collections we're talking about today,
Right.
the nonfiction,
It's part of it.
when we started the process to where we are now, did that stay about the same size, or did it grow, or did it shrink, or?
It stayed about
About
the
the same
same. It
size,
did
yeah.
not change the volume we have. It's changed, if you think in the way of, the way I think it's, you change the quality. Because it's more up to date now. Yeah. So.
Moment and dance. And
Yeah.
just as a reminder, the projected build-out was about 411,000 for total capacity, if all the shelves were full, and everything was checked out at the same kind of circulation rate. 411,000 is what all the buildings are projected to be able to handle. So, just so you know.
That's good to know. And we're at about 350, you said now.
Just about.
I felt like we
Yeah.
were at a higher number, but that's okay.
As you add materials, although you're not adding a huge number each year, I suppose at some point you've got to do a little culling on materials that are aged, out of date, or nobody ever checks out. Do you actually go through that process, or is it just kind of, well, this hasn't been checked out for 5 years, let's get rid of it and replace it with a new one? How does it work?
It's actually a combination, a sort of both factors you just mentioned. It's a continuous process on one hand. That's what that management means.
Okay.
The continuously evaluating and weeding, deselecting, we call it, just because of the conditions, the datedness, and those factors. But also, at the same time, we do want to have enough for people, but at the same time, the space has to allow it. And then we do have a tool called Collection HQ. I don't know if we ever mentioned it. Collection HQ is a tool we use. We have been using it in the past a year and a half or almost 2 years. That tool tells us certain items are, because it's a British tool, so we use those terms called grubby when they become, they need to be replaced, as you just said, because they have been circulated. Some of our media items, like DVDs, they have been used, children's DVDs, like 320 times. Then we just have to assume they need to be replaced. But then there are some that they're called dead items. Dead meaning they have not been touched in the past 36 months or 5 years. We have different criteria based on how important it is to keep it up to date. So computer science technology, medicine, travel, biography to a certain degree. We have to keep them up to date. So then the criteria for judging if it should be dead or not, we set those to anywhere around 24 months to 36 months. But then the literature, David Copperfield, we set it for 5 years. If that book has not been touched in 5 years, no, that means no major movies, no major televisions, no school homework assignment, and then it takes up space. It's a shelf sitter. Then that item need to be taken out of the collection. So it's a combination factor that, and then that collection HQ tells us, gives us data, and then we don't strictly use that to, in a literal sense, exactly take action what the data shows, but it's a lead. It brings our focus to that particular areas.
One of the things that can happen, not often, but often enough so it creates issues, is you have a topic that nobody has looked at for years. As an example, let's say the Titanic, and nobody paying attention to it. You know, it happened almost 100 years ago, who cares? And then there's some event, they come out with a movie or something, and all of a sudden people are, oh, gee, what about the Titanic? And they run to the library to look it up, and it's not on the shelf. And these sorts of things, not often, but they'll happen occasionally, and there's no way you can prevent it or predict it.
True. But our vendors, they do their research on their end. They usually, they're good at prediction, and they work with other elements affecting their industry. So, and then they share that information with us. And also our librarians are trained with that kind of a keen sense what's coming up. Yeah, that's why they're selectors, and they're specially trained for doing that kind of work. Yeah, it's also, we have Link Plus. So like for a impromptu, like a sudden need that happens tomorrow, and then we can rely on Link Plus, which a lot of academic libraries that have the luxury of storing a lot of materials, and then we can use that service to meet the sudden needs, and then we can buy more, right, at the time.
Yes, I do have a question regarding the feedback from our patrons, from our customers. Do we have a survey or do we have a data to know which categories they like to update most? Do we have that kind of data? So when we update all those categories, 100, 200, or 900, then we have a guideline, because we are serving this community, and what the community, we like to know their feedback, which kind of collections they would like to update most. Do we have that kind of data?
Well, we have a program called Counting Opinions that's available on the website, and then people, that's a constant, it's available constantly, so all the time people can go in there, and then we do see comments about, oh, you should buy more. The one that I remember the most is always this person keeps on requesting more books, single plays, like Arcadia, like, you know, the single plays. I don't know if it's for Shakespeare Festival or for, single plays. So we often see that request for single plays. So that's one way, like Counting Opinions, that's available through our website, where it says here, share, what's the, I think it's share with, oh, we like to hear from you. I think that's what that is. So that's one channel. Another channel is my suggestions, and that goes directly to the selectors and myself too, and we monitor that. And then so my suggestions, and that is a very important venue for people to tell us what they want. And we have a system in place to respond to that kind of requests. So when they say, I want this book, I think the library should have this book, and our selector sees that email right away, and we take appropriate actions.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yeah, we encourage people to use that my suggestion feature. That's at the when you use the library catalog.
Do you have any info on the non-English collection? Or maybe that's another topic for another meeting? But I don't know if you can give us a quick overview, do we?
We can cover that next time. But then for now, we do have more than, we're counting 14, 15 types of languages we actively collect. So Asian languages and then European languages. And I don't have the data right now, but our focus so far is Russian, Spanish, and Chinese materials, and then European languages, and then the rest. When we say our focus, meaning we purchase all types just like English. So adult fiction, adult nonfiction, teen, juvenile, media, we purchase just like English, but of course on a smaller scale. But the rest of the languages, we focus on children's materials, and then for adult, we focus on DVDs. So for entertainment, DVDs, and juvenile is print and media, and then also we have electronic resources in foreign languages too. And recently we added a French language. It's called Story Player, that allows people to sign up and log on to read children's books in French, and they can record their reading, and then after you create a login, the whole family can listen to the children, to the grandma. You can share. It's a community. So that's called Story Player. And also recently, not long ago, we purchased the Kono that offers Japanese and Chinese magazines. So we're catching on and catching up in that area as well. Then I'll be happy to provide data next time.
Okay, great, thanks.
So going back to the last part is going forward. And of course, we need the financial support, the continuous support from Friends of the Palo Alto Library. And then we are updating our collection development policy because the policy has been with us for 7 years. So we should update that. Also, a key component of that is we want to reflect how we will develop our electronic resources, and also how to integrate and best use our money to purchase both electronic resources to meet that needs, and also to print at the same time, because we are serving people with diverse needs. So we need an updated policy. And then the analytics, the tools we use, are continuously playing an important role and guiding us. developing our collections. So we will make the use even more use of the tools we have. So including Collection HQ, Counting Opinions, and Orange Boy. So that ends my presentation.
Thank you, Diane. I did have one other question, which was, and probably it's been mentioned at some point, but I just didn't have the statistics. I think that the books that, when the library buys a book, it costs the library more than it costs me if I go to the bookstore and I buy the book. And I don't know why I have that idea, but I thought it comes with, the
That's-
RFID and or whatever.
Oh, so on print, we get discounts from the
Okay.
publishers. We don't, and from the vendors, we don't go directly to like a bookstore or something like that. So we don't pay the full price. We do pay to have the RFID sticker put on and the cover, but it's still probably less. What you're thinking of are the ebooks, where
Okay.
we pay substantially more for many ebooks than, you may pay $9.99 to Amazon, for example, and we'll pay $80 for the same title to add it to the club.
Yeah, for the digital, and I did remember that, yeah.
Yeah.
And with the digital collection, one of the things that seems to be really great is that a lot of the technology books are available through one of the, I don't remember which one of the sites it is,
Safari
but one of
Tech.
them, has all the O'Reilly books and stuff that comes out when you need it. It's
Safari
really
Tech.
terrific. And that's, it's something that I think must be difficult to stay up with, to get the right
print,
mix. Yeah,
correct.
in hard copy, yeah, right.
Correct.
Okay, that was really good for me. Other questions?
If I can, one more, thank you. And thanks, Diane, really great presentation, and thanks to the Friends, of course. I was curious about the budget for collections. Do we, in terms of how it compares to what the Friends are able to do we have budget in our, every year? And how much is it, or how does that work?
Oh, yeah, we have several $100,000
Okay.
that goes into collections. This is over and above what
Right.
we're normally purchasing. So, we are getting regular titles and things like that, but what we use the Friends for are specific projects that are focused like this kind of thing. But, yeah, I mean, if you want, I'll look it up and get back to you, and we'll let Alex go. And I'll give you this year's budget. Okay.
I had a thought on foreign language books. It just occurred to me. Do you get a lot of feedback from people saying, gee, we need more books in Swedish or in Portuguese? Some language is not widespread, but there are people that want it. Or do you get comments from people saying, gee, you have a lot of nice books in Mandarin and Chinese, but I wish you had more because this new one has just come out and you don't have it in the library. Do you get a lot of feedback on the foreign language books, or is it just kind of they take what there is?
Yes, actually we do, just because we're very conscious of the fact that we all have limited dollars, and we really want to focus on the needs. So we can basically only purchase what people request. Yeah. So.
That seems like a rational way to deal with it, though. So,
Yeah, and I will say that Link Plus, there's a lot of access that way to books in other languages, which, that has over, I was just attending a meeting, over 8 million titles in English and other languages, but, certainly people can search that way and find items that might be of interest that we wouldn't necessarily need to collect on our own.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else? We'll see Diane back in June or the next meeting to talk about collections in general.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so we can welcome Alex, who's going to talk to us about the circulation loan periods and changing loan periods. So welcome, Alex.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. It's good to see everybody again. So I'm going to be presenting on our library lending loan period review. We are in the process of reviewing our standard loan period in the interest of getting it more closely aligned with other libraries throughout Santa Clara County and San Mateo County as well. Currently, our standard loan period is 4 weeks. Standard loan period would basically apply to the vast majority of our material, so that would be excluding certain things like magazines or new releases. So in reference to standard loans, we're looking at just about all our books and the vast majority of what we circulate. So with the exception of the Mountain View Public Library, the standard loan period throughout Santa Clara County and San Mateo County is 3 weeks. So aligning our standard lending period with other libraries will give us a more accurate comparative assessment of our library circulation usage. When we look at our circulation usage now, in comparison to other libraries in the area, our numbers, because we're looking at a 4-week loan period, could potentially be skewed. So we're looking at, when we compare our numbers to other libraries in the area, we're looking at sort of an apples to oranges situation. And we're more closely aligning our circulation period would be more of an apples to apples. So if we do change our loan period to 3 weeks, the better alignment will give us a better assessment of how we're doing in relation to other libraries in the area. And I believe this was in your packet here, and what I have including is the comparison data. So these are other libraries in the Silicon Valley library system, basically the other libraries in the county. And as you can see, the standard loan period for Mountain View and Palo Alto is 4 weeks. For other libraries, it is 3 weeks. Likewise, I think there was an accompanying packet that's not in the slideshow here for the Peninsula Library System, which is every community college and public library in San Mateo County. And that is all pretty much across the board 3 weeks. So there are the benefits of making this change for the analysis of our usage. However, there is such a change would come with some impact. So, of course, our patrons have come to expect a 4-week loan period. It's a rather generous period comparatively. So making the change of going from 4 weeks to 3 weeks would, of course, have an impact on patron expectations. So that would represent a change to the service that we're offering. Of course, with that change, there would come a change to staff. There is the impact of potentially mediating increased fine disputes for people that may not understand that we are changing our loan period. People who are operating under the assumption that we're at 4 weeks, there is going to be that transition. And of course, communicating the reason for change. Any change within a library system services is going to be questioned by users naturally. So we are looking at a change here that, of course, suits our analysis purposes, but for the purposes of patrons, such a change, there may not be the immediate presumption of benefit. So those were some potential issues that we'll have to work with if we go through this change. But there are steps that we can take for managing that change. A big part of it is proactive communication. Of course, this can't be just a change that is going to happen overnight and under everybody's noses. So, of course, if we do pursue this change, there would be the need definitely to communicate ahead of time with our public. And of course, there would need to be an informing and training staff process on how to be positive and proactive in mediating any disputes or inquiries that come out of this. So there would be that training element. And then also potentially grace periods if we do implement the change and there is a transition period. We do often also have the option to may perhaps have a grace period for any fines that come out of it. So that is the review plan in a nutshell. It is, again, the primary driver of this would be to get in better alignment with other libraries in the area. And of course, it's not without some challenges and work that we have to do around it.
Could you say, explain it in more details? Because you said that it would be it would be easier for us to do the comparative assessment if we change from 4 weeks to 3 weeks, because as the data shows that most libraries in the Santa Clara County, the period is 3 weeks, except Mountain View. Could you explain more in details in terms of comparative assessment? What's the difference between 4 weeks and 3 weeks? Yeah.
So when you look at the rate of circulation for a library system, the number of times an item is checked out and the number of times it is renewed, that would constitute the circulation statistics. So the number of transactions, checkout, and renewals are what contributes to the statistics. So if we are assessing our numbers based on a 4-week loan period and a 4-week renewal period, you're looking at potentially a decreased total circulation number compared to libraries that are within 3 weeks. Because presumably there will be many cases where a library user who is utilizing material and going through a certain number of renewals may need to transact less with the Palo Alto library than a comparable library. So if you're comparing to, say, another library in the area of a similar community size, similar collection size, it's quite possible that their library usage may reflect higher or hours lower because of the total number of necessary renewals for a patron to have it for a certain period. So let's say somebody needs something for 12 weeks, which often happens, so meaning that they go through a 3-week library, they go through the period of checking something out once, and I think 2 to 3 subsequent renewals. That would all contribute to the total circulation numbers. If somebody needs something for, say, a 12-week period, or, say, longer, 16-week period from the Palo Alto library, potentially the number of transactions they need to make are fewer. That eventually would show lower circulation numbers.
So, is our statistics looking bad right now? So we need to increase the number of circulations?
Well, I think the statistics, I wouldn't say by any measure look bad. I mean, there have been certain declines in circulation of hard material, increase in circulations of digital material. There has been a decline over the past several years owing to many other factors, but I think these declines are similar to what you would find in other library systems. So there's been sort of downward circulation trajectory trends among libraries, I would say, in the whole region. So if you were to see any downward movement in our circulation numbers, I don't think they would be very dissimilar to what you would see from other libraries in the area.
So remember the report that, the spreadsheet that we put together with the comparative statistics from other libraries? So that data is compiled from the data that the state provides, and the state has that website where they compare all the California libraries. So circulation per against population is reported there, and circulation against maybe hours, various things. And so I think the point is just that when you go look at ours, it's different. I have I think that one of the things we're coming to is, why would it be important to change? You know, if we were going to change, what would be the reason? So it's how we would be able to compare ourselves to other libraries more effectively if we were to change it. what other reasons might there be to change the loan period? Because I'm wondering what effect it has. I mean, how long do people actually keep their books out? Does everybody keep them out 4 weeks?
It could vary depending on,
Do
it's
we
variable.
know what the average is?
Whether or not we can pull up, I don't have that information currently, but that'd be something very useful to look up as far as what the average number of renewals are per checkout, which would give you a better idea. So if there's very much a trend towards one checkout period and then a return, or whether there's subsequent renewals and keeping of items, I believe that's information that we can locate in our system.
Yeah, so I didn't mean to keep you from talking, sorry.
Yeah, I just think that if you want to have a comparative assessment with other libraries, that's fine. But I think as library, we're serving our community. I think most of the time we have to think about what our patrons really want. Is that a lot different between 4 weeks and 3 weeks in terms of statistics? Is that so important to shorten the loan period from 4 to 3? Is that so vital that we have to change this? And I don't know if we have the data or how much we know about our community that they would like, maybe they would prefer longer period of the loans. So what do we know about our community? So the first question is, how much do we know about our community? And the second is that a lot difference? Is it so important that we have to change from 4 to 3?
Well, I think putting it into alignment with other libraries means that we're looking at the same parameters of measurement. The question of how important that is as a measure of the performance of our library, as far as circulation numbers, it's a good question.
Yes, and we know that Palo Alto Library is one of the best libraries in the Bay Area. Maybe not just in the Bay Area, in the California maybe, and the whole nation. So, and we are like a 4 or a 5-star, right? So I think we really did a very good job serving our patrons, our community. And I really don't think it's so important to change the loan period from 4 to 3 weeks. Another thing is that if that's the policy, you decide to change from 4 weeks to 3 weeks, then what about the renewal? How many times that our patrons can renew their books or DVDs or, their items? So I think we have to think about these questions from the point of our patrons, to see that which is more important to them. And for the comparative assessment, as far as I know, that our statistics is not that bad. On the contrary, we are looking pretty good in different ways. So I just want to the administration to think from our patrons' point of view.
Of course. And with regard to renewals, that is a factor that we can always adjust accordingly, so as not to compromise the total amount of time that somebody can have material.
So speaking of circulation, the following. So for the renewal, I just want to make sure, because you're talking about circulation, so when a patron renew the item, would that be considered one circulation as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I also add that, I'm sorry.
Just a couple. Oh, you got that? Okay.
I was just going to suggest, as we're looking at this and considering it and trying to figure out, what makes sense, I think having comparative statistics is valuable. And it's valuable to you as managers and to us as an oversight or advisory board. I do see where Sheena's coming from in terms of the patron's perspective. Now, one thing that occurs to me is that the shorter the the period, the more the book will be available. And so I don't know if there's a way we can quantify that or look at the statistics on, how long books are out, how often they're stocked out, or checked out, and then how this might impact that. And so that's a potential benefit, I think, to the patron. There's potentially a cost to certain patrons who take longer, but for patrons who are waiting a long time for a book, there's a benefit. And so I think in terms of, how we might explore, how this might impact our patrons, that'd be valuable to look into and might be something we can bring to them to consider, as we look at changing the policy.
And that's a very good point, because I think it would be very relevant when you have a situation with very high demand items. So when there's a new book that comes out, new movie, typically you may find that there may be a bit of a wait list for it. And so that could impact that as well. The total wait time for somebody who's waiting for a hold for an item, it could end up being reduced. And that may further have the impact on the number of titles or the number of copies that the library needs to purchase to accommodate the high demand items.
I think it's a valid point, but I also agree with Sheena that our first priority has to be our patrons and satisfying them. And so the obvious question is, would they be happy if we cut the time to 3 weeks instead of 4 weeks? Would it make a difference? And I look at the circulation figures. You just look at February and March. It averages, again in round numbers, 116,000 per month, which is almost 1.9 books per resident per month, which is quite a bit. And if you want to compare that with other cities, there's a number you can look at and say, okay, this is the circulation rate. And then you can also look at the libraries, most of which have 3-week circulation periods, and see, is their checkout rates higher or lower than ours? That would be one way of comparing. Another way of comparing is getting a renewal. If very few people in the Palo Alto library system find they have to renew books, but in Redwood City, it's twice as many, then 3 weeks isn't long enough because more people are renewing books because 3 weeks isn't as good as our 4 weeks. I don't know. We don't have the data. So I think we need more information. And again, before we do something like this, I would like to find out from our patrons, would it make a difference to you if we cut the time from 4 weeks to 3? And oh, by the way, this would allow us to get more titles on the shelf because it would make it faster to turn the books around. And I remember one book, I forget which one it was, a couple of years ago. It was so popular we had to go out and release 54 copies. And within 3 or 4 months, the popularity died. We gave them all back to the publisher, but that sort of thing happens. Okay. If we had a 3-week instead of 4-week circulation period, could we have gotten away with 40 titles instead of 54? Who knows? I think we need more data. We really have to understand what the community wants and how we can best serve them. That's the key.
Well, I was just going
I'm
to,
just going to make a point before.
Oh, yeah.
I still need to come up? Nope. No? It's been made.
well, I was just going to comment that a lot of the impact and how well this is received would very much come out in how carefully we roll it out. So if it was something that was just brought out overnight without a good amount of communication, without working with our staff, then most certainly we'd encounter a lot of these problems. So we do have potentially flexibility on the back end, flexibility in terms of how we can mediate any issues that come up with patrons, how much we can potentially extend the number of times renewals can be made. Those are things that can be adjusted on that side to mitigate some of the negative parts of it.
So I guess I have a couple questions. First of all, is this a proposal that we need to make a decision on tonight?
You could if you wanted to, you don't need to.
But it's not
could just-
required,
Nope.
or, and would we ever? I mean, so, or would it be
Technically,
something that you might?
No. I mean, if you look at the Muni Code, no, but we bring it to you because this is, something that has been in place for a while. There's a number of reasons, that
Yeah, okay.
we're considering it now, and all of which you've brought up, the shortening the hold wait time, purchasing maybe fewer copies of an item, creating a collection that renews itself more frequently. People who are going to have things on hold are going to have things, or are going to keep renewing, are going to keep renewing. So that's fine, because right now, I was gone, so you mentioned that there are limit of 3 renewals right now?
Currently, yes.
Right, so you could in theory have something for 4 months.
Right. So, thank you. I think it's certainly a good thing to think about. During the time that I have been on the LAC, there have been a few things that came up, and one that does come up is that people do regularly say, I can't get the latest books, it's always on hold, the hold queue is too long. So, Monique, you added the Lucky Day collection, and that has, I think, significantly reduced the way people think about this problem, because they really do think they maybe could get it at Lucky Day. And the library that I heard most frequently compared as, well, I can go there and get it, was Santa Clara, which is it is a 3-week loan period. So, I think that if this was going to be an improvement in service to our customers, that sounds like the reason to do it, unless it's also some monetary reason where it would really, really help us in some other way. Otherwise, people are asking for more library hours. They love their libraries. They love going to their libraries. They love having the service. They love having Palo Alto be wonderful. And so they're not going to want to, as you pointed out, they're not going to necessarily want to go to 3 weeks unless they hear what the motivation is. What's the benefit going to be to doing that? So I think there might be some additional statistics we might want to see. For example, like, are most people renewing or not renewing? Are there a lot of people who really want to keep it out more than 4 months? So it would be helpful to have a little more data, if it's possible for you guys to get that in a reasonable.
Sure, I want to emphasize that if we just say we're going from 4 weeks to 3 weeks, a lot of people are going to say, oh, you're hurting our library service. But if we can also say at the same time, and the benefits are, bang, 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 we looked at this, we looked at that, and we think we're going to be able to give you more if you bring the books back. And oh, by the way, if you can't do it in 3 weeks, you can always renew it. So we have to make it very clear to the public what they're going to benefit by our shortening the circulation time. If we do that, I think we can do it and be effective. Otherwise, we're going to have a lot of people very unhappy. And I don't want that. I don't want people to feel that we're doing things to make it better for their library operations, not worse.
And I'm sure if you do decide to roll this out, you'll do a really good job of making sure that story is well told. Go on.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to suggest, too, that not only is it good to help communicate the benefits to the patron, if there are some, which would be a good thing, but also that their concerns over the costs, meaning we haven't really talked about the fine piece of it yet. I know you've mentioned a grace period, which I think is important in any transition, but I don't know, what our current fine rate is or late rate is at 4 weeks as compared to the late rate at 3 weeks in the other districts and the other libraries. And if it's similar, it just happens to be that a certain percentage of people are late, no matter what the period is. It could be 2 weeks and potentially people would be late. And if those are similar, then that is another factor that, we might consider in terms of giving people comfort that it's, we're not going to be creating a lot of fines in the process.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Is this thing part of this presentation?
Yeah, it was actually, because we knew that there was going to be a question, there was actually, a question of, do we even need fines? how do we handle that? And because, that is always a concern, like, oh, all of a sudden, people are going to incur more fines because we've shortened the time. We're not a revenue generating place. You cannot run a library on the amount of fines that we take in every year. So, it is one of those things where we just wanted you to be aware of some other trends related to this. And you can certainly say we'd like to see more. We're not, you've heard our opinions, and you can go away and do whatever do what we do, or we can, come back. We're certainly not thinking of doing anything immediately. We want to make, I think as Alex said, even though I wasn't in the room, we want to do this thoughtfully so that people understand the benefits and know why this is helpful, I think, to them as well. So, because, the Lucky Day collection is a 1 week, and most people tell me in that 1 week, they can certainly read the bestsellers that they happen to pick up. If they go a little hog wild with the bestsellers, then maybe not. But certainly, I think we receive more. We have people accruing a greater number of fines on the Lucky Day collections than others, because if you have things that are due in different time frames, it's confusing. So some people see a book, they think, oh, I have 4 weeks. Turns out not true. So
I think we've had a great discussion. Just a question, though. Ebooks,
yep.
is there a checkout period for that? Is it similar?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the same.
Absolutely.
It's
yeah.
the same. Okay.
Same. Uh-huh.
And they self-return, so there's no
Right, there's no
possibility for
fine.
them.
There's no fine, and you can actually set the time if you want to shorten the time that you have it checked out. You can do that too in the ebook thing. So
Well, so I think I did hear a number of questions. So I will not be here at the next meeting or the subsequent ones. So it's really up to the three of you if you want to ask Alice to come back with more information. In the near term or a longer term?
Yeah, I think it would be helpful if, in terms of the questions we had, around the specific benefits that I think we've brought up, if there's a way you can, get some answers or more data for those questions, I think it'd be useful to present it here for those who are watching and, just to socialize, some of those benefits.
Of course.
Yeah, I believe that the intention is good. Other than comparative assessment, I think the intention is to serve our community better, but I think we need more data to support that. Okay, thank you.
I will say, though, that, of all the things that people want to know every year, it's how many items got checked out. And that this is affected directly by this question. There's, this is one of the ways that you can up your circulation. So if we want to be, again, compared apples to apples, and statistics are not the same for every library anyway, but to do as much as we can, because we're not even a 3-star library anymore based on the data. Because there are libraries that do automatic renewals. So even without the customer saying, I want to renew the item is automatically renewed, and that counts towards the circulation, which is great for access, not accruing fines, things like that. But when you are looking at those sort of ranking things that communities are very proud of, we have to figure out, okay, how do we do our best to be transparent tell the correct story of how busy we are and still create a quality experience for the community. So if you say that doesn't matter anymore, we don't care if we're a starred library, then okay, no problem. You know, there's different things that we can do. So,
And I don't think we know that we don't care about that.
right. Right.
Although I think the average patron doesn't know that.
I would agree.
About that statistic. But the other thing that we do know that just occurred to me to say, it seems as though circulation is kind of trending down across the country. And it may be something that is looked at more in our circulation, even if we go to look at the library director's report, seems to be a little down. It went up when we got the new buildings, and then it seems to have gone down, and the digital collection is going up. And the use of the library buildings is going up. There's way more visitors. There are a lot of programs, but the circulation is kind of going down. So it may be important, and if it were to be important to have those statistics, my experience over the last 3 years is that you don't have the statistics for 2 years after the fact. So if it's going to be needed in 2 or 3 years, now would be the time to make this change. Okay, so I think we can go on then. So we're going to get some more data, or you guys are going to get some more data. I'll look for the agenda to come up on the website so I can find out what happens, all right?
And just to go back, the total budget for all materials, including electronic materials, this current year was $750,000. So that was our budget. In round.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Alex. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is number 4, election of the vice chair. But there's another bit that isn't on here. So I'm going to just take the opportunity to put it in there. It's in the packet. So I didn't reapply, and so I'm not going to be here at the next meeting or any subsequent meetings. I believe that the position of vice chair is just a yearly thing. I mean, not vice chair, of chairman is a yearly thing.
That's
anyway.
correct.
So we switch it out.
You would have been.
So I would not have been chairman.
Yes.
And there would have been, in June, an election
Yes.
for chair. And if Don were still here, I got his name right, were still here, there would be an election for vice chair in June also. However, Don went to one of the other commissions, Parks and Rec. And so we don't currently have a vice chair. The reason this election is on the books is because we don't have a vice chair. So if for some reason Monique needs somebody in an official capacity and can't use me, which has only happened to my knowledge once, like over the bed bug thing, weren't you involved? When they found the bed bugs in the library and there needed to be reports to the press and so on, didn't you go talk to, no? Thought you did. Thought you said you did. Eric. To Eric? Mm-hmm, yeah. So if something came up, we don't know what it might be, and it couldn't be me, there isn't anybody officially in charge. So that would be why we would do this election. And we wondered whether we should do it or not, put it on the agenda or not. And I believe Evelyn checked with the clerk's office, and they said we can. So they said you don't have to?
Yes, because you can either decide for in June or do the election today and then do another election in June also for chair and vice chair.
Okay. And so, and I think it's also true that if we were to elect somebody as vice chair now, while often the vice chair does become the chair, that would not necessarily have to be so, probably. So I think that's all I know. I think we could open this up to discussion because Sheena was saying, why are we doing it at the beginning? So you want to talk some more?
I think that basically the situation that you described would be very rare, very rare. And if it really happens, I think as a commissioner, we can approach to Monique or to anyone who's in charge of that incident, if any. So personally, when I looked at the agenda, I was kind of confused why we have election today, I mean in April, then we'll have another election in June. So I would think that I would think that why don't we just leave the election to June and to decide the chair and the vice chair. As for the situation you described, I think that any kind of issues or events or happened, I think any one of the LAC members could approach to library staff or Monique or anyone to find out. So basically, I don't think there's a problem. I don't know. What do you think?
Actually, there is a problem. And by the way, I'm sorry that June isn't applying for commission again. We only had 3 applicants for 3 openings, and I thought that was too thin, frankly. The problem we have is that if we won't have a chair, because her term is expiring, and we don't have a vice chair currently, so when we meet again in June, there's going to be nobody to officially run the meeting. Now, anybody can raise their hand and say, I want to run it, but I think it'd be better, even if it's just a fill-in, to have somebody as vice chair, so when we meet again in June, we'll have somebody that can officially run the meeting, instead of just saying, well, you do it, no, you do it, you know. We'll have 2 new members because of the appointments that the council will be making shortly. And I think it would be better, certainly for the new members, to have a, let's say, an operations system that works, where you have somebody that says, okay, this is the meeting, here's our agenda, I spoke to the staff, and this is the agenda we got together. And now, by the way, we have our regular election for chair and vice chair, which we do anyway, and I'm delighted if you want to continue me in office, or if you want to have somebody else, whatever. But I just think that because of the situation, because our 2 officers right now will not be here in June, it's better to have somebody. So that's why I think it's appropriate.
I did not think about that. I did not think about that. In June, we might not have anyone who's in charge of the meeting. In that case, and I think, yes, yes, we need this election, then we will have someone to be in charge of the meeting, yes.
That's exactly why we need a chair or vice chair, so. Because you're not going to be here though.
I'm not going to be
June
here.
our June meeting, you're not going to be here. Okay.
Then I nominate Doug to be our vice chair.
Maybe we could vote. All in favor? Aye.
I'll abstain then.
All right, good.
Congratulations.
Okay, thank you.
All right. If I have any official business that I do between now and then, I will copy you on the email
Thank you.
and ask your opinion, which I do think it is very helpful, actually, that there are two people and that we can talk to each other about the business as it comes up, the agendas and things. So,
Happy to help.
yeah, all right, good, right, done. Now, so subcommittees is the next item on the agenda. So what I remember is that Monique it was at the last meeting, talked about renewing and updating the strategic plan for the library. Was that the last meeting or the one before?
Before.
And Don and I came and talked to you again as the strategy subcommittee. And I do think having a subcommittee to work with Monique as the year unfolds and something is, and that strategic plan is updated, would be probably a good idea. A while back, we had a statistics subcommittee, but I don't know if that's necessary. And then there was one on teens. What else did we have? Did we have others?
In the past, we have had others. We've had some looking at the web, some looking at marketing, others looking at, do you remember, Evelyn? I'm trying to think. But there've been a variety. I mean, maybe that's a good list to put together for the June meeting. What are all the different subcommittees we've ever had, and what are the subjects that they've looked at, so that we can see if there's anything needed, or if there's not, or maybe we wait to see if there's something more specific.
Yeah. You might want to have, I guess, a subcommittee on something, well, so the subject that just came up, that Alex brought up, might be something that needed further study. I think if you were going to try to roll it out.
Oh. If it were an idea that, yes, we were going to go forward with, yeah, that's always a possibility, and an ideal topic, since the subcommittees are not supposed to be in place longer than 6 months, and, there's a short
Right.
window of opportunity.
Because of the Brown Act, the subcommittees can only be, right? Or 6
No,
months long, or
because
because of the
it's
bylaws?
It's the council rules,
Okay,
yeah.
council rules, all right. So I heard a suggestion, which is ask Monique to put together a list of all the subcommittees we could possibly be part of.
Or you can just come up, or you don't have to right now. I mean, if there's nothing
Yeah.
that seems urgent.
Well, some of them kind of died a natural death. I believe 6 or 7 years ago, there was a subcommittee on facilities when the library bond was being pushed, and we were talking about what the new branches would look like and all that. And the libraries have all been built, they've been running for a couple of years, so facilities is not an issue anymore, so that subcommittee kind of went away, which is normal. And I can see, let's say, issues coming up in the future that we aren't thinking of right now. As an example, ebooks all of a sudden create a problem because of the way the vendors are providing them to us. So we have to have a subcommittee to look at circulation and ebooks and paperback books and how we can get the collection working more effective. That'd be an example of something that might happen. Okay, so then we look at it at that time.
Yes, I think I would suggest that why don't we discuss the subcommittee members until June? I think then we would know what kind of subcommittees we would like to have, and we will have new members, and they can be part of it.
I think that also, just, I could mention, it was helpful to me when I first started on the LAC, to have some subject to focus on, to, spend a little, be able to do a little research or try to understand try to understand anything beyond my daily experience of walking to the library and seeing it, or did I find the book I wanted there, which is certainly valid, but, I wanted to know more about how to think about that, put it in more perspective. So that was very useful to me. Okay, so the action item is, Monique's there's a list on the agenda. We put it on the agenda. So the agenda, subcommittees is on the agenda again. But that's to know what we have done in the past and choose some. Are we done? Done? Okay, good. And Monique, I'd like you to welcome you to the meeting, and we're really looking forward to the director's report.
Thank you very much. So you had the February and March monthly reports about programs and activities and use at the library. You had my monthly report, which is much shorter now that we have the big monthly reports, but it's a director's report, and then you had the an article that I thought was interesting out of Library Hotline about free educational resources for trustees, so that you could see some activities or things, tip sheets, handbooks, things like that that might be of use. And I think that from now on, we'll include that in the new packet for new trustees or new commissioners, so that they can see what happens nationwide in addition to in California. So that's really all I have, unless you have any questions.
I just had one, Monique, you mentioned about the PLP grant
Yes.
for the technology. Could you just give us a little more info on that, an update?
Yes, I can. So the grant that we received this year includes exploring a virtual reality modeling station so that hopefully people can use the 3D printer with greater accuracy and with a more complete design before they begin doing several iterations. But it required a really powerful computer that we didn't have. So we had to purchase that. So we'll be working on that here, but the VR station, the virtual reality headsets that we have, Marin County is doing a lot of work with VR. So we may be partnering with them on some projects along the way. This has sort of come out of this grant. The other part of the grant are purchasing 2 robots. The Beam Pro has already arrived and is in use at Mitchell Park as a greeter. If you haven't seen the Beam robot, they have a shop on University. It essentially looks like an iPad on sticks that rolls around. And it looks like a big Roomba docking station where it docks. We have a new librarian who's very much into helping to understand user experience, and she's following this with an iPad where she then talks to people about their experience interacting with it, with the robot, talking to the person who's on the screen, and getting a sense of what their experience is with that. Did they like it? Did they not like it? Were they excited? Were they disappointed? What are the things that they're doing? So we'll be using it more in May, June, and July, and we will also be getting a NOAA robot, which does not have a face, but which can be programmed. And again, this brand-new librarian has experience doing programming. She has written APIs to get the apps together to do things with the robot. So they will move around, assuming that we have the cases to move them. So they will visit different libraries, and we'll try them out that way. But yeah, it's kind of a neat experiment. As far as we know, we're the first library to try this. And it was written as a pilot. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And we'll use them for something else. We know that, the DeYoung Museum, for example, you can sign up with one of the beams if you're homebound, and they will tour the collection. And so you're actually
cute.
able to see the art. We know one of our staff members, at her grandson's graduation, there was a child too ill to attend, so he had a beam that attended, and it accepted his diploma, and he was able to navigate through the crowd and interact with the parents and the other students. So, I think there's some really interesting applications for this. So we'll see.
Is there, I would think that teens would love it, and the little kids. So that'd be interesting to find out about.
Yeah, so we're gonna, we'll do this little user experience thing, write up our report, and just see, then start thinking about other applications in a library setting that might work.
You mentioned 3D printing, and I wonder how's that going, because I know a few months ago, you said there was a huge demand for it, and you had people who had to reserve 2 or 3 months in advance. Is that still popular, and do we have to buy more printers? Are we okay with what we've got? How's it working?
Well, that's probably part of your part. I won't get ahead of myself. So the challenge with the printers is that the printers we have are for home use. They're not, they're in use all the time when they're out. And we don't have them printing 24 hours a day. They clog up, they cause, there are failures where it'll just stop, it won't work. We had a time last month and the month before where none of them were working. And there's no service. We're figuring out how to fix them. The nozzles get clogged, things like that. So the ones that we selected were the least likely to off gas, for lead requirements. That was a question, why isn't there one at Mitchell Park? Well, it's a LEED Platinum building, and if we intend to recertify at some point, we would need to have those in a special room with separate vents, the way we have the copy machines. So then the question is, well, why don't you just put it in the room with the copy machines? But we do need these near a public service desk where staff can help and keep people from interfering with, with pushing the buttons or doing whatever else they might do. So, so that's why we had them in Rinconada and downtown. It does require significant staff time to make sure it's working correctly, to work with the person who's brought in the file, to ensure that it's done correctly. There's a lot of hands-on time spent with this. That doesn't mean that people don't love it. We still have, what we did during that downtime, and we did buy 2 more just to get some in working so that we could go ahead with projects. Maybe you saw that there were 2 young men who created a traffic calming system for their school. It was a contest, and they printed the parts that they needed for their science traffic project at the library.
Oh, cool.
So it was really cool.
Didn't see
I think
that.
they won. So, you know, it was a really nice way of, it's one of those nice stories of telling, to tell, that talk about, you know, how interesting this is that they were able to do that. But again, it's a lot of staff time involved. They're not 100% foolproof. And yes, there is near constant demand for when they are able to be reserved. It's rare to find an opening in 3 to 4 months, so. But you can go online and register and look for your time, and some people are happy to sign up in 3 months, knowing that they're going to be able to print it then, or print another iteration of whatever it is, so. So it's pretty interesting. I think it's one of those things where it's great that we're able to offer that technology to the community, and it will get better. I mean, it'll be a technology that improves, that where maybe it doesn't clog all the time.
Well,
So
there's
frustrating.
probably some young person who's using that printer now who will later on invent the next new step, right?
Right.
Or the third next new step, and it will all have started at the library. I think it's also a really great example of, you know, the library as a place where there are services for the community to come in, and not so limited to a place where you go to read a book.
Right.
To get a book or a magazine. I think it's going to be interesting to just kind of think about how that changes and see where it is, you know, in 20 years, where will it be? That'll be interesting.
Right. And, you
So-
know, it really fits in well with our mission statement, which talks about discovery and delight, and, you know, we want to inspire the community. So that's really, this really helps do that, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, good question, Bob, thank you. Anything else? Anything else for me?
Well, there's one more thing, which is congratulations on being elected the Public Library Association, ALA, Public Library Association President.
Thank you,
Yeah,
thanks.
it's neat.
There's no campaigning involved. It's great. You would really enjoy this. You put your name up, you write a statement, and you let it ride. So yeah, I'm really excited. I'll start after this conference in Chicago in June. I'll be president-elect for a year, then president, then past president. So it's a 3-year
It's a
commitment.
3-year commitment, which is, and so will you have a chance to interact with even more librarians who have your position, or to affect ALA policy there, or something like that, or?
So PLA is the largest ALA division. It's one of what they call the big two. There's the academic folks, and then there's the public. So there's about 9,000 members, and it's more about the policy of PLA and the direction that the organization is taking, and how it makes public library, influences the attention that everybody pays to it, whether it's ALA or ULC or you know, the elected officials, you know, everything. So, yeah, it's great.
It's neat.
Very fun.
neat.
Thank you.
All right, congratulations again. Okay. I have to put my glasses on. Okay, so we're on to other reports, which are the council liaisons report.
Nothing from us, sorry.
You mean the council has not been just like really asking you, grilling you?
So sorry.
No, that's all right, we're happy. They've been very
Yes.
busy, and you've been very busy.
I was hoping you'd say you love the library budget and you just want to give us more money when they have the meeting next week.
I'll read it and then I'll recommend.
Yeah, always justified. Okay, commissioners' reports and questions. So what we did have from the previous meeting, I think, was that we were, or two meetings, we were all going to kind of adopt a library and go and visit one that wasn't our standard library. So I'll just go first. Mine was downtown. So I just tried to make it my library because it's not immediately in my neighborhood. And so it was the library that, where I went to browse. It was the library where I went to pick up holds. I tried to spend not a whole day there, but a while there. I don't really sit down and read magazines, but I tried to do that. And I hung around and I wasn't thrown out of the children's section, because I was there unaccompanied without a child for a little while. So it was really interesting to me. It's a lot smaller than Mitchell is now. It's a lot smaller than Rinconada. It's interesting to me how effective a lot of it was. You know, like I could go browse the shelves and find a lot of things that I was really interested in, and even though it's a pretty small set of books that's actually there on any one day, and it's a really nice reading area. So very pretty, and the parking is great. My experience of parking, I don't know why this is. There's this little, there's a little parking lot right there, and I always get a place.
It's great.
Yes, it's wonderful, isn't it? Yes. So that's my report. Anybody else?
I went to College Terrace, which I hadn't been to for a few years. As it turned out, my wife had a book on hold, and instead of releasing it in Mitchell Park, which we'd expected, they released it at College Terrace. So I got an opportunity to go down there again, and it reminded me of what a charming little library that is. I was also reminded, they did some renovation, and they managed to keep the integrity of the design when they did the renovation. And it's just a very nice place to go into and to walk around. It wasn't very crowded when I was there, which was mid-morning on a weekday. I park right in front. There's not very many other people there, but it's a very nice facility, and the librarians were very friendly and very cooperative. So I thought it's a nice place. And it's probably the closest thing we have to a real neighborhood library. It's very well located for College Terrace and for people in that area, in the commercial area in California. And I understand that the librarians are doing quite well there, that they enjoy it. And the other one I went to was Rinconada. I went there for among other things, the city council meeting. And while I was there, I walked through the library, and the facility is in very good shape. It is very functional, and people that are attending it seem to be very happy with what we've got. So I thought those two facilities, the way they were modified and the way brought up to date, are working quite well. And then, of course, there's Mitchell Park, our popular library. And, I haven't been there for almost 3 days.
Well, speaking of Rinconada, that's where I went. And we spent most of our time at Children's with my family, but now they're getting older. So I brought my daughter to Rinconada, and we had just gotten a community garden plot right next door, which is very convenient. And so we went and saw the seed library, which is very interesting. And there's just it's very small, but there's a great variety of different seeds that you can check out, I guess. And I think you can check some in too. So anyway, my daughter did suggest that we're kind of new to the gardening thing, that we check out a gardening book. And so we did that to help plan our garden, and we've now since weeded it and planted it, which is great. But it was a great experience, in terms of discovery and knowledge, and, it wasn't just books, although that was part of it, but putting that experience into practice was really great. And then the other visit with my son was around the 3D printer. So we did make an appointment. We had to wait, I think, 3 months, and we got on, which he was very excited about, and I was too. I'm not sure who was more excited. But we did some printing. So first we went to the website, and the website recommends some places to go to get some designs if you don't have your own, which we didn't. And then those designs, the library can take and then print. And so my son, who plays ice hockey, found an ice hockey player. It was like a trophy. And so the process was very interesting in terms of some of the challenges that Monique mentioned. But this is the first thing that came out, and this is a skate and a calf. It's part of a leg. But it didn't quite make it, as you can tell. And this kind of went overnight and stopped. So I have to give a lot of credit to Alex, who, talk about his commitment to patrons, because this became a project for him. And all the other librarians. I mean, the amount of effort they put into this. So I'll pass it around. That's the first piece. Then we did it again. And, the question was, is there something wrong with the design, or the printer clogged, or who knows? So then we got very close, but we're missing a leg. So there he is. And then, lo and behold, now he's got a little beard here, but you can trim it off. We haven't quite trimmed it, and you can paint it. And I hope my son's not watching, because I dropped this on the way in here. But he was done, and he sits on his stand right here. Oh my gosh. Which is pretty cool. And then it printed a puck and some sticks. So here, I'll pass these along too. You can see. I'll hold on to this. But you can see this is the base here. It actually comes off, that the printer makes just to have a foundation that's stable and flat, I guess. And then it starts printing the actual thing that you're trying to get printed. But yeah, so the story has a happy ending, except for me dropping it on the way in here. We'll have to go back and print it again.
So how long did it take?
Well, so that was 3 different kind of print jobs, and it runs overnight. We get there in the evening at 6, and then by really the next morning when they open the library, hopefully you have a design, and so it runs all night. Oh yeah, the details, is pretty amazing. So when it's working, it's really cool. It's great, and you just have a lot of patience. Like any new technology, right? There's, So,
Yeah, I think this is such a great example of like where the issues come in, and you never know. And sometimes it'll just work brilliantly, and you'll have this beautiful building, or you'll have something else. But thank you for bringing this in. Wow, the hairs looks good.
yeah. And yeah. And Will was thrilled. I mean, and it's so cool to sit there and watch it, honestly. And it's like, out of nowhere. It's just slowly putting it together.
I guess I do have a practical question about this, and we could talk about it all night, so I probably shouldn't even ask, but what did he find? Did he find a program that he could put in, or did he take a picture or something
Right.
and then put that into the printer and have the printer figure that out?
Yeah, so he found a design file. So it was something that someone else had already created on the internet. And there was a picture of a completed item, so he could picture it. And then we took that and imported it into, I think they put it on a memory stick, and then the stick goes in is how you could probably do it wirelessly. There's a bunch of different ways. But that was the main method. Now, if you have a CAD program or design software, and then some of these websites have their own design tools, and that's where you see some of these, is people put their designs up, and then you can trade them or sell them or give them away or whatever you want to do. So it becomes this whole kind of community around 3D printing designs. So there's a lot of different sites and a lot of different designs. Now the challenge is that if it hasn't been done before, you don't know if it's a good file or a bad file or how compatible it might be. I mean, they're all standard file extensions like .dwg or whatever it might be. You know, and the programs that they have, you know, are kind of simplified, I think. It can get pretty highly complex and technical. But there was someone who, you know, was before us who had done their own design file, and they had printed their name, you know, on a plate. And so I think they were able to go into a design software and create that.
Create that for themselves, yeah.
Yes. So
Okay.
there's kind of a few different ways to tackle it.
Thank you.
And
I
so
think it's a great
that-
opportunity.
That
Yeah.
VR station that we have, you guys should come and use it and try it out, because essentially you put the VR goggles on, and then you see that in 3 dimensions, so that it allows you to fiddle with the program. So if you wanted to make it look like your son, right, you could
Yes.
probably do that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they have, I think, you know, it's starting to grow all the peripherals. You know, there's scanners, 3D scanners, where you put an object in the scanner and it will scan it in space and then come up with a design file. Now, it takes some tweaking beyond that, I think. It's not just, you know, snap, push a button and print that, you know, replicate it. But yeah, there's a lot that goes on the software side to make something like that.
What's the material?
This is PLA, I think it's plastic, and there's 2 types, and Monique talked about outgassing, and the concern about the other type is that it's got particulates and there's more outgassing, so I think the library picked the right and the safest.
Pick the safest things available, yes. And I think if you leave it in water for a while, it will disintegrate, because there were some patrons who called in and said, well, I'm concerned about the junk and more trash and all of this stuff, and we're like, just soak it in water, it'll go away.
Well, and I think the other thing is if you have scrap, there are kits to melt it down and extrude your own filament. And so people don't
Right.
want to spend money constantly buying new filament, because it's not cheap.
Filament is not cheap. They come
You
in
can
big
recycle
rolls.
filament. So that's another potential down the road. You know, people can bring their rejects or other pieces and recycle. Anyway, it was a really great experience at Rinconada.
Okay, it's my turn. I went to College Terrace as well, and when I was there, I think the building, if you were there, you would be attracted to the building. It's so classic, and but you know, when I was there, the question in my mind was, how can College Terrace compete with Mitchell Park, Rinconada, even children's library? Even downtown library. And I was thinking about this question a lot when I was there a couple of times. I don't know if we should find a theme for College Terrace. It's very small. I don't know about the square footage, but it's very, very, the room, the space is very confined, even though they still have a reading area, they still have a computer, they still have shelves for books, but you can see that the shelf, the books, they have very limited books and DVDs there. So, so that's the question I have. Should we have a theme for College Terrace? And because of the confined space, and I was thinking the whole plan for Stanford University, they're going to increase lots of houses there, and the whole project for our housing development and growth, especially in that area. And I was thinking that how can we better serve our patrons over there? And if College Terrace cannot compete with Mitchell Park, Rinconada, or Children's Library, or even Downtown Library, can we think of another way? Because I was there, I was very impressed by the geography, I should say travel books. They do have a lot of travel books collection over there. And I think that's a good thing. If we can build up the thing for college terrace, when people try to find out, if you want to travel, you want to find out travel books or tour books, and if college terrace can just jump out and they know that that's the place they should go, then I think that would be wonderful. And they provide, even though with confined spaces, they still provide lots of magazines and lots of
They
DVDs.
have that great reading room. It's just a great little reading room. So, it's so charming.
And, the outdoor space is even larger than indoor space. And I don't know, maybe we can use that as well. But when I was there are only one or two patrons over there. So I think the visits is very, very low when I was there. I stayed there about 1 or 2 hours, and I've been there 2 to 3 times, and that's how I felt. Very, very few people will go there, and most of the time, if they were there, they're just picking up their holds, the books or the DVDs that they hold. So I think College Terrace has potential, but maybe we should find a way or try to promote College Terrace. That's a beautiful building, and the whole area is wonderful. Yeah.
Thank you, Sheena. Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I agree. It's so charming. And there's a big piece of real estate there that's just grass, no playground, no parking lot, no, it's just, and no building. And there's more building that isn't being used, and yet I know it would cost a lot to change that, so.
Yes,
But it's charming. It's charming.
Yes, I do have another report. I told stories at Mitchell Park in March because Maggie was on vacation and they needed someone to speak, to tell stories in Mandarin. So I was there and I really enjoyed it very much. And the reason I was there because I don't want to cancel any programs for our library because people used to get there, they want to hear stories. So that's why I don't want the programs to be canceled. And I think this is a great opportunity for us to be with our customers, to serve our customers. So if any of you are available, if you want to tell stories, we do have lots of story times that you can participate.
Not in Mandarin, though. I can't do that.
You can, if you speak other language. I believe we have other language like a Russian, Cantonese, and what else? Spanish. Yeah. So you can speak English. You can speak English stories as well. So that's a great experience.
I also did go to visit Rinconada quite a few times since we've, and there is something charming also about the study period-like atmosphere there. It's just quiet, and everybody's, I guess they're using their computers and reading, but they're just spread out, like you can tell that they're really enjoying just being there. And it's just interesting. The other libraries have something similar, but in Rinconada, I don't know, it's a different silence than the other libraries. Yeah, and I thought that's interesting. There's so much character to them. You were going to say something about?
Yeah, I was going to point out that the circulation at College Terrace and downtown are almost identical. And the visitor count that is about twice as much downtown as it is at College Terrace. So in terms of circulation per person, College Terrace is still doing quite well. And another thing I thought was interesting was that the circulation at Children's and at Rinconada are almost the same. And they're very different kind of facilities. So obviously, the Children's Library has been very successful. It's well used, and it's well patronized. So I think the library system is doing a good job of serving a broad range of people. And one other comment, I have made arrangements to go to the ALA meeting in Chicago in June. I got the plane reservations and the hotel reservations, and it's going to be an interesting event. And I'll be spending some time with my younger daughter, who is going there also, since you probably know she's a publisher, as well as being an author and an artist. And she just published her 75th book. And it's the first one that isn't a children's book. It's about her husband dying from Lou Gehrig's disease.
Oh, God, that's,
And it's just something a little different. And it's an interesting book. I'm not going to go any further than that.
next item on the agenda is the agenda for next meeting. So the next meeting is on June 29th. That's a change in the date, which was made to accommodate attendance at the ALA convention for Monique and Bob. And as you can see, the agenda, there's a presentation, Analytics on Demand. I think Diane's going to come back and talk about the collection. We're going to talk about subcommittees. Is there anything else we want to put on that agenda? Oh, and the
Election of officers.
Oh, right, okay. Alex was going to come back or not next week?
Next time.
I mean, next month.
We might want to have a report on the ALA meeting.
Okay.
I think that'd be useful.
Sure, we'll put Alex back on. We'll see how it goes, because we'll work with Doug to firm up the thing, so.
Okay. I don't know if under general, we can touch on the foreign language collection?
Yes.
Or is that a separate?
No, I guess that would be part of the collection
Yeah.
report. That is part of it.
Okay, great.
So,
And then another,
and do you have, can you say specifically what you're interested in knowing?
how big is it? You know, what are the numbers by language? Has it changed over time, you know, in terms of the size or the makeup of the language?
Sure.
Just to get a sense of baseline, I guess. I don't have anything particular.
Okay, sure.
And then another topic, I don't know if it's for June or later, Monique, but just around, you know, and I think Sheena kind of touched on it in terms of her time volunteering. But, you know, our volunteer program, and, you know, status, or if there's any plans there, because I know before, you know, we.
Gayatri probably talked about it before, didn't, I think she had a report.
Oh, did she? Yeah, okay.
So she can come and talk about what they've done and what they're doing, because
Okay.
there's more volunteers, there's more.
Great.
She did talk about it.
But we'll have her come. If it doesn't fit into June, then we'll do the next meeting out. Okay?
Okay. Would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second.
All in favor? Aye.